Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. Um, Jamal, Autumn, and I today will be speaking about anger management and Sabr. So, honestly, I feel like we gotten a little repetitive, right? Every episode starts with a, how do you feel about this? Or how do we define this? Or what does it mean to you? I don't really think we can do that with this one. Sabr and anger management are pretty upfront. They're kind of like in-your-face topics. The one thing that I feel like I'm going to start us off by saying is that I think for the most part, it's predominant when you're younger. I think when you don't know how to control your emotions and when you're younger, like I could remember being a teenager and, being mad at the dumbest things and just being mad, like really upset about everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like growing with age, it's kind of just like, life goes on, you get mellow. What about you guys though? Like anger management, Sabr, yeah, of course, they're really in your face topics. I'm not gonna ask you to define them, but what are your experiences with them? Do you feel like you deal with them well? Because I have an opinion on how both of you deal with anger, but how do you guys feel about yourselves? Some self-reflection here.
I'm just going to kind of go off of you, Masani. I think I've started to deal with it a lot better as I grew older, but I think it's not just age. I think it's more so understanding of what Sabr is, right? And in terms of anger management, it's the ability to be able to showcase my emotions in a more healthier way and not do it in in a negative way, right? Because like you were saying, when you're younger, you're screaming, you're yelling, you're throwing tantrums, but there's obviously ways to address that you're feeling angry without showcasing those negative behaviors. So I think it's just kind of realizing that there are healthier ways to showcase that, and then again, kind of understanding, the whole idea of what Sabr is. So.
Yeah, I think sabr or anger is a root. It's like one of the byproducts of not having sabr, right? Or not being able to maintain sabr. So I look at sabr as its own separate thing and like a goal. You want to be able to achieve sabr. You want to be able to have that patience, right? And have that patience, and it'll take away from anger. It'll take away from all these emotions that you feel. And I guess when you're younger, you talked about this a little bit. So when you're younger, I feel like a lot of your emotions are fed off of temperament. And you more react than you do think before you react, right? It's more like, oh my God, someone did this or something happened, you react. Something happens, you cry. Something happens, you get mad. I feel like as I've grown older and as I've learned more about Sabr and just really accepting, I think the biggest thing is like accepting that everything that happens is Allah's will. Whether you think it's fair or not fair, this is Allah's will and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I guess just thinking about how you're going to react, taking a moment to like breathe. And it's probably in the show notes, probably going to talk about it, but like, I remember I was listening to a talk by Yasser Qadi, and he was talking about like there's like 3 levels of sabr, and like the first level he mentioned was like being able to have sabr when a loved one passes away, and being able to stop yourself from being like, why him, why this, why that. 'Cause it's so natural to fall into that, right? So being able to pause and be like, hey, like this is Allah's will, and I feel like it's such a hard thing to do, right? It's so hard, and I think that's something we should be striving for and trying to do. And I have a lot of respect for people that can maintain their sabr, right? And that also ties in with anger as well.
Yeah. I feel like you gave like an Islamic afterthought on it, so I'm going to give like more of a cultural anger management perspective. Have you guys ever heard of Drake's 72-hour rule?
No.
So I think he went on a podcast and he said it's probably not his own rule, right? But he's saying that his mom told him growing up, she's like, give it 24 hours, all right? Give it another 24 hours, okay? Give it 24 more hours, right? So now you're at 72. Do you still care? Are you still pissed off? Are you still fed up? Are you still angry about whatever you're angry about? And if after 72 hours you really don't care, then it didn't mean that much to begin with.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, 72 hours is low-key a lot of time. But if you put it into perspective, it's like if it won't affect you in a couple of days, why do you care so much about it? And I feel like, when you're younger, you let everything bother you. Bad grades, rumors, if you take an L during sports. Someone on our podcast... I would say, Maz has a tough time dealing with losses. We play football with him all the time. He gets real angry.
No, because think about it. It's all reactive.
It's all reactive, right?
But you're more reacting than you are thinking
but you
and
can also
acting,
respect
right?
him for it because as soon as that game's over, it's like you're back to normal.
Right, and the only way to actually not react to something is to pause and to reflect on it. If you don't have a chance to reflect and you say the first thing that comes to your mind, most of the time you're probably going to regret it.
Yeah. And that's very much a very natural instinct, right? It's very difficult when we think about it. We tend to react first rather than think about it. But that whole aspect of taking a pause before you speak, before you react, is this appropriate? Is this right? Should I be reacting the way I am? Is it worth it? And like, kind of what you were saying, it's very difficult. So yeah, it does take some time. But, personally for me, I think when I became... when the whole aspect of, really because it's one thing to understand what Sabr is, and I think it's another to actually believe it and believe what comes with Sabr. And I think when I started actually incorporating the whole idea of Sabr and actually putting, everything, taking it out of my hands, letting it go, like understanding that I don't have control over everything is kind of what helps you with the whole anger management perspective as well.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, I mean, when we were looking into it, right, because we always look into whatever we talk about just to see if there's any, some hadiths that point, like correlate with this or anything that we can take out of it outside of like the obvious. And there was an analogy made when I was reading through it about like anger. And it was like anger is like if you're in a cave and you light a fire and you close the cave off, and then all that smoke that comes up, that's your anger building up. And then eventually that smoke leaves the cave and you fess up and you get really, really upset. And something that I'm really guilty of is that if I'm mad at, say you got me really angry, and I might see Unum later in the day, like I'll blow up at Unum. And I think that is like, that's how I know, like, where your maturity level's at. If you're going around, getting mad at one thing and then blowing up at someone else, that's also something I think we're very guilty of when we're younger. You don't really take that time to think about what's going on. You just, like you said, very reactionary.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's still a constant battle, and I think I'm still striving, right, to maintain a better sense of sabr and to be able to like reduce anger and I guess emotions in general outwardly towards other people. But I think a lot of it, I've gotten a lot better at it recently because I actually have time in my day now to where I can reflect and be alone. And I feel like that's so important because, like, for example, in undergrad, right, when I was at the fall, class, people, event, something, right, always with people, and you never have a chance to sit down, reflect, and be like, okay, how can I process what just happened? And then, as you said, you take something from one group, take it to the other, blow up on someone else you don't mean to, it turns into a whole thing. Now that it's like work from home and all that right now, especially, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of like, okay, if something happens, I actually have the time to like reflect on it. And a lot of that also comes to our 5 daily prayers, honestly. Making wudu is a great thing to do to reduce your anger and your stress in general. And then there was also like a hadith where like if you're standing up, sit down. If you're sitting down and you're angry, lay down. And just to get yourself out of that situation. So I think is having that time to reflect on it and think about it will change your outlook completely. Because how many times have we impulsively just done something that we completely regret, right? And I've done that a lot in undergrad. I still do it. So it's like, I think the first step is being conscious of it, right?
Yeah.
Probably
Being
the hardest
aware,
step, actually.
yeah.
Do you guys, like, how do you cope with it, right? I would say you're both pretty good at dealing with your anger. Like, I've seen you guys in different situations where you're both upset, and you do a pretty good job of handling it. Maybe better than most. But everyone has their own way of handling it. So what you guys do? Any specific?
I'm hesitant because
like,
I'm kind of off like, you want to go first?
Should I ask myself my own question?
Yeah, ask yourself, yeah.
I guess. So I've gotten really good at talking through it. And I feel like that was something I really, really struggled with because, I don't know, I feel like as guys it's really hard to talk about it.
No, 100%. 100%.
But I won't direct it towards the person that I'm mad at, right? So I went on vacation early in the year, and I had an argument with a friend. I was really upset, and we got in an argument over something, right? The next morning, whatever we were arguing about, like, came to fruition, and I got up and I had my own room because we were in this Airbnb. I was gonna walk out and I was like, man, like, I could start this fight right now. I could start this fight. I could blow up right now. And my mom FaceTimed. She's like, oh, you look really upset. I'm like, I detailed it out, as this person's standing outside in the kitchen. I'm like detailing out my problems. She's like, is it really worth it? I was like, damn, it's really not worth it. So for me, it was like, obviously, like, I'm not going to talk about that person, right? Like, I'm upset at you. I'm not going to go direct my emotions towards you. Can I direct them at a third party and get a feel for, should I do this? Should I not do this? And to get it from a parent, in my opinion, is just like, if I got it from a friend, depending on the friend and their personality, they might have been like, oh yeah, go for it. No, don't go for it. But from a parent's perspective, it's like, hey, like, you're better than that. Like, think about it. So for me, like, that prevented a blow up, and it was just like, all right, let it go.
Yeah.
Sorry. I feel like that should have given you both type of time.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of thinking because although, like, I know this episode is more focused on anger management, but for me, anger is one strong emotion and anxiety for me is another strong emotion, and they both play kind of hand to hand with me because I'm very anxious and I do think I have quite the temper. It's gotten better, but they kind of play hand in hand and it's hard for me to control. So it's gotten better, okay? But For me, it's a lot of different things. Support, right? Talking it out, not keeping it in myself, because then I go down the spiral, right? Make it a lot more worse than it really is. Radical acceptance, realizing that there is nothing in this situation that's already happened that I can change. Again, understanding that it's not in my control, right? I can't get upset or be mad about something for months and weeks and days when it's already happened and I had no control over it. Obviously, this depends on every situation, varies situation to situation. Kind of going off of what Jamal said, also kind of tuning in with myself, right? A lot of the times when you're busy, when you're unable to really just take that time for yourself, check in with yourself, ask yourself if you're okay. You're going to build up. You're going to have those overwhelming emotions build up inside of you. And I realized when I did start checking in with myself, when I took out the time, even if it was 2 minutes, just to like ask myself, are you okay? What's going on? Instead of just, I'm fine, I'll get over it, it's fine. It's made a difference. So it's kind of a lot of different things. It's a lot of different actual physical activities, namaz, Quran, talking to people. It's kind of a combination of everything. So I can't really say one thing's worked for me, but it's all kind of a progress right now. And I'm still working on, so.
Right. Yeah, I think we're all working on it. That's a great
Yeah.
example. I think for me, a lot of it comes down to checking myself with my ego. A lot of the times when I'm angry about something, it comes back to me and why am I angry about what I'm angry about. I like recently attended this one workshop and it was like the 5 whys, if you guys have heard about it. Like for example,
Fill me in here.
so it's literally what it is, right? So it's asking yourself why 5 times to really get down to a problem. So like
Okay.
let's say for example in your Airbnb situation you were gonna blow up at this person, right? Why do you want to blow up at that person? And is that really the reason? Why is that the reason, right? And it's diving it down, and it usually comes back to you being insecure about something or something that's deeply affecting you, right? I'm not saying that's the case for you. I'm saying that's how it is for me, and that's how.
And again, I'm
yeah,
sure this varies in situation to
exactly,
situation.
exactly.
But I think that's a very good point.
So
Because now
that's
I'm thinking, like,
yeah,
yeah, that's true. There are a lot of situations, like, where I could use
yeah.
just why,
Yeah.
and then come down to, but why? Like,
This
Yeah.
might seem like a
worth
very, very
it.
like minute example, but like recently my cat passed away, and it was a lot of like what like usually when you like lose a loved one, and I know it's a cat, it's not a human. It could have been like a parent, it could have been a sibling, this and that, but cat was valuable to me. I loved him. But like it comes down to like okay, why, right? Like why did this happen, this and that, and you want to blame everything, and you want to get really mad about it, and then like you check in with your own ego. And you're like, okay, this is Allah's qadr. And it sounds so cliche. And a lot of people, I know, like, I've heard it so much for, like, yeah, what happened, move on. Like, that's so easy to say, but it's really hard to act on. And I think it is. But I think, dude, the sooner that you could realize and really understand that you can't do anything to change Allah's qadr
Exactly.
and what's happened is done and you need to move on. And, like, okay, this is done.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do in the future now? How do I get
Exactly.
past this, right? And, like, how does that bring you closer to the deen? That's honestly how I think about everything now. And I think the best way to cope with it for me, I think I said earlier, is just giving myself alone time.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
just think about stuff and
Yeah.
to reflect.
Dude,
Yeah.
that reminds me of so like when I was a kid and I got mad. My dad would always be like, in a rough translation, it would always come on to like, only idiots get angry. And I was like, all right, what the hell? Like, what's the point of that? And when I grew up, I was like, I asked him about it later, like when I was older. He's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant like, you're getting mad over something you can't control, right? The situation, say you're in school, you're angry over a test. You can no longer affect the outcome of that test. Like, why would you get mad over something you can no longer handle? And I feel like that's something that we're all very guilty of. At some point, it's like, it's out of your hands. Focusing on what you can control probably helps your anger a lot, unless it's anger with a friend or something along those lines. But most of the time, we're angry at stuff that is no longer even in our hands. If you wanted to affect it and you really cared about it, you could have dealt with it a little earlier. You can deal with it now, right? You can affect the outcome of it going forward. But most of the time, I found that it's stuff that it's not even in your hands anymore.
Yeah.
What are you getting mad about?
As long as you recognize like why what happened, and like
Grow from it.
exactly grow from it, take accountability if it was your fault, responsibility, and be able to grow from it. Or else it's really easy to be like, okay, what happened, and move on. I'm not gonna worry about it anymore. If you were like, if it was 100% you, this and that, something you could do in your power to change, right?
Yeah.
So I think as long as you're learning from your experiences, it sounds so cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah,
dude.
I know. I
Honestly,
feel like
that's the
we
thing.
sound like a really cliche podcast.
But it's like I think as you grow older, and we're all really young still, so we still have a lot of growing to do. But I feel like as you grow older, you start to understand this more, right? Having patience and sabr, even from like fasting Ramadan to this like day to day life
Obstacles that come
Right.
in your life,
Financial
situations,
struggles,
Yeah.
financial,
school, whatever
school,
it might
yeah,
be, relationships,
work.
friends, whatever it might be, and just like analyzing every that's how I
Mhm.
look at it. I analyze. I overthink this sometimes,
Yeah,
right? And it's also
yeah.
important to make sure you don't overthink.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think you tend to regret it too, though. Like I don't know about you guys, but you know, like when you get mad, and I think I said this earlier, but you know, if somebody gets you mad, like the source of your anger is never what actually feels like the wrath of your anger.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, if you're upset about it and it comes off on somebody else, I feel like that is a really strong way to burn bridges. There's definitely friends where, you know, because of how angry I've gotten, you burn bridges, and then you look back at them when you're older and you're like, damn, you know, I wish I didn't do that. In the moment, though, you know, you're so fed up that you don't think about it. But I think, you know, looking back, I think you can have a lot of regretful choices just off of that. So I think that's where like Sabr really comes in. I feel like there's so many
Right.
ways to practice Sabr and just mindfulness in general.
I
We had
think-
Sapano,
yeah.
and now he has his own app called Sabr.
right. Shout out Sabr. But I think the flip side of it's really, really, really interesting too. We talk about friendships, right, and having like friends or family members that, like, let's say you know that they get really angry at you all the time, right? You have a lot of friends that are really angry, and sometimes in the back of your head you're like, okay, are these the friends that I want, this and that? But maybe looking at it from their perspective, like everyone gets angry. That's really natural
Yeah.
for people to get angry. But like, why are they getting angry, right? Can you have that conversation with them? Even if you can't have that conversation, how could you be there to support them, this and that, to get through it? Because like, I mean, it depends person to person, right?
Mhm.
But usually anger doesn't consume people. But like, people have spurts. People get angry. So being able to support each other and knowing that we're all human, we all get angry, we all
Exactly.
lack sabr at some points, right? How can we be there to uplift and support each other,
Yeah.
knowing that we're in the same situation?
I want to add that, you know, we were talking about this being super cliche. It does sound also cliche and maybe even uncomfortable when you kind of think like, oh, you want me to have conversations with my friends about what's the root of your anger? Like, it sounds kind of silly, right? But
Yeah.
it is an uncomfortable conversation for many, but it's something that's, you know, truly important to kind of talk about, especially because a lot of people don't even understand that there could be so many different reasons to the root of their anger, or just, you know, why they're feeling the way they do, or, you know, why they question so much. And it's our job, you know, obviously as Muslims, to be able to educate one another and be able to kind of be there for it. If anything, we're just there to support one another, right? I did want to ask though, and I wanted to kind of segue, because we're talking, you know, a lot about how we can cope and, you know, what it looks like for each one of us. But there are obvious answers for this, but just from our own examples, I want to know how you've seen anger negatively impact your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big part about anger is it's kind of like a gateway, right? You can take anger and it can lead to a lot, like, you know, a lot worse things like pettiness or vengeance. Like, you know, however you let that type of negative emotion lead you, it will lead you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen it. Right? You get mad about one thing and that turns real vindictive. It happens all the time. Personally, damn, I don't know. I have to think now.
I mean, it's a heavy question, and there's a lot of different, there's physical, there's mental, there's everything, right? But what's maybe the biggest difference that you've seen from maybe when you were little, right? Not being able to manage your, not even just anger, but any negative emotion or feeling that you have, to versus now where you have more of an understanding and you're able to kind of cope with it better with the different things we talked about. Because I'm sure there's like a big eye opener when you, like, if you were to reflect right now and think back, like, man, when I was angry, I had all this other stuff that was going on with me that, you know, kind of came into effect because of, you know, the not being able to control your anger.
Right.
Dude,
So it's just
I thought
curious.
that question was something completely different.
Oh,
So I was really confused.
I'm glad I restated it.
You want to go?
I gave an example. I think in the last 2 years, this is something I learned a lot, is usually when you're angry, you're petty. Right? I mean, for me, it's like that a lot of the time.
I'm with
and a lot
you.
of people I know, right?
I'm with you.
And usually when someone does something petty to you, you want to do something petty to back, or just petty back to them. It's really, really easy to do that, right? But I guess being able to realize and be able to understand, just because a dog barks at you doesn't mean you have to bark back at them, right?
Oh, that's an uncle example right there.
It is, but it's so true. It's so true, right? Like, you guys have all heard this saying. Yeah,
Yes.
It's like if you're walking by a dog and a dog's barking at you, you're not going to
You're
turn
not
around and
gonna
start
bark
barking
back.
back at the dog. You're going to keep walking.
Yes,
Right.
You're old now, Jamal.
Right. No, it's so sad. It's so sad that I have to say an example like
I say
that.
no, Jamal's married. Oh wait, you're both married.
You know what's crazy though is because people our age, us, us included, people our age, people older than us, even uncles will be petty to one another for no reason whatsoever, right? But we won't sit back and give ourselves the chance to reflect and be like, okay, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? Why am I angry about this? And like how you said earlier, Musani, like, is it really worth being angry? What's the consequences of doing this and that, or talking to this person, or doing this, or doing that, right? So
I think that's my benefit. I've learned it's never worth it.
Exactly.
It's literally never
That's
worth it.
one thing I'm starting to learn
angry,
more and more.
Because you could always resolve the issue. But I guess the one thing I've seen is that when you're like really angry, you never realize that it's your fault. Because most of the time, man, I feel like people, most people are rational. So if they're angry at you, and then you get angry back, right? Now you have two very negatively charged people that are just gonna be angry for a while. But we never take that time to say like, yo, what was my fault, all right? And I know sometimes when we get on here and we talk about stuff. Yeah,
ego
but
and humility.
I know, when we get on here and talk about stuff like this, sometimes it sounds like we're so perfect. I'm talking to you about anger management because I can manage my anger so well, and it's not like that, right? The thing that comes back to it is just it's so hard to say like I'm the problem. I feel like that's with ego. You never want to be the problem because of ego.
Yes. I agree with you 100%.
So I think that's probably the part that you realize it's like, all right, let me take a step back. Let me think about why you're angry. And sometimes it's probably worth dealing with the problem if you are the problem. Sometimes it's not. And I think that's what you learn with age is that sometimes you should care, and sometimes moving on.
Yeah. No, I think I really liked what both of you said in terms of like literally it's just realizing that it's not worth it. But going off of that, for me, it's more so just realizing, looking back, how much time, energy, mental energy,
like
physical energy. I am a people pleaser.
So do you try and resolve all those issues? Like when like someone's angry at you, are you like, all right, let me deal with this? Or are you just now right? Like, are you
see,
like,
my
right,
anger, honestly, my anger isn't so much people based. It's more situational based. So if something doesn't go the way I want it to go, or just a lot more things. That's why I said it's more so things that I can't control. And that's why I've had to realize that I cannot control what happens. So I need to stop thinking about it. It's not going to change what's happened. Obviously, the whole people thing happens. People get pissed at you. You get, someone does something you don't like, pisses you off. But for me, it's literally just realizing how much mental and physical energy I've wasted on something that's already happened, something I can't change, and just realizing how much of it has taken a toll on me. Like if I'm angry right now and I'm like done recording this podcast, I'll probably be angry. This is me, like I'm going to say like 3-4 years ago, I would be angry for a good week about the same thing. I would hold that grudge. It possibly could be ego. It's just me literally beating myself up about it, getting annoyed about it, and it's all like, it already happened. I can't change it. Why am I wasting so much energy on it, So for me, it's kind of just realizing, wow, I wasted so much of my time, so much of my energy. I've gotten sick about it. I've cried about it. I've said things I haven't meant. Like all of these things for what, right? Just coming back to kind of like the why? Like what was it worth it? So it's a lot, but I think you kind of have to come to that understanding to get to the point where I am now, where I'm like, I can't keep living my life like this, where I want to keep wasting away something that I can't control. My energy, time is valuable, your health is valuable. So, it's kind of come to that for me. But
I don't know. I'm not angry for weeks. I'm not crying about it.
I am. So I hope I'm not the only one.
I actually relate to you. I mean, I don't know about
you're crying about it.
I'm not crying about it, but
no, I get angry for someone for weeks.
I used to be a really, really big people pleaser.
Yeah.
I used to want everyone to be happy all the time,
and
make sure everyone's happy and maintain as many relationships as you can, but it's not possible.
No.
Eventually, it's gonna end. You can't keep it up, right?
Mm-mm.
And it's like you said, accepting it and knowing that it's not as long as you're doing everything in your power, and if something doesn't work out, it's Allah's qadr. It doesn't work out. It is what it is, right? Move on, right?
Exactly.
Stuff like that. That's something that I've learned. But I think it's really natural for people to be people pleasers, right? To start off.
Are you more situation based though? Like I'm saying, like people don't, people are not the thing that's gonna get them mad. It's like situations. Are you more situation or people?
Well, I mean, aren't people defined by their situations that they're in?
I'm saying.
I like that you said that because now I'm thinking about it. So more
situations get you mad.
Mine's more so like the situation that has occurred by the people.
What they did or what they said. The actions that they did.
I felt like when you said situations, you meant something that like was literally static. You can't control it.
Okay, it's that too.
Like you didn't get a job
mad at
you
everything.
really wanted.
Yeah. But it's
Well, yeah, no, that's
also
also
people
true.
based.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
See,
Things you can't control, so
Yeah.
situation like that, but then people that have caused
Like,
the
for example,
situation.
right, a job that you get rejected by or something,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you have all the qualifications, you think you did amazing in an interview, you don't get it, right?
Mhm.
And you want to get mad at that company, you want to be like, okay, I deserved it, how come I didn't get it, how
Mhm.
come I didn't do it? You could go on a whole tear for weeks and months and get mad about it, or you could be like, all right, yo, this is Allah's qadr, it is what it is, move on, right?
And it's so simple.
It's so simple,
It's so
it's so
simple.
cliche, and it's so hard.
But it's why is it so hard for so many of us to do? That's my
Because
question.
we're so attached to worldly things.
There we go.
That's honestly what it is. Myself included.
No,
Yeah,
me too.
yeah.
And I'm like
We're having an unfiltered conversation.
no,
here right
yeah,
now.
no, I'm a little
Yeah.
like, because that's what it is. It's
So we're
literally,
so attached to the dunya.
it
That's
is.
it is what it is.
That's it. I
Yeah,
mean, what else?
I
Why
don't
why
know.
can't we just focus on letting Allah handle it? Like, knowing He is
Knowing
the
that
greatest
you
of
put in
planners.
everything, you did your best. Whatever happens.
Exactly.
Happens, right.
How, like, that's what it is. That's literally
Getting
like,
into a school.
no.
Getting a job. Getting the perfect spouse. Life is a rat race and a competition. If you want to live in it, right? Like this life, it's all a rat race, dude. At the end of the day, and
What, Masani?
Th-
What?
This could go into a whole other topic too.
Oh.
And it probably isn't. But I think I think this honestly
No,
really ties back to Sabr though.
Yeah, it does.
Being able to accept, right?
Yeah.
Being patient, being able to accept what happens,
Mhm.
happens, right? And that whole other thing, the rat racing, that could be a
Mhm.
whole other topic. But hustle culture.
I know, we're just
right.
right
that,
back.
that could go back.
We
No, but
looped
like
it.
being able to accept that whatever happens, happens for the better of us and to bring us closer to our deen.
Yeah.
And like there was even an example of like making dua that you really get this job, but not making dua that you have barakah in the job that you get.
Yeah.
Because what if you get this job, it puts you in a position where you're far away from your loved ones and your family, you're far away from a masjid, you fall out with your deen, but guess what? You got the money and you got the job.
Yeah.
Is that really what you want, or you want the barakah with the job?
Yeah.
Right? So like small things like that and being able to be conscious of those
Mhm.
things, I think is such an important first step, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so like when my siblings were going into college and they were all like applying and stuff like that, my mom never made dua that they got into a certain college. She was like, she made dua that they got into the best college for them.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, whatever that may be, right?
Right.
Best is so superlative. But I was gonna say, I wasn't gonna say anything. I just couldn't relate to the conversation you guys were having. But I think
Okay.
that's just out of the fact
It's
that
real.
I'm like, I think it's just because I've become so, I don't care. Like, all right, moving on, next one. And I guess when you defined it, right, when it's a rat race, you're looking at everybody else. And we've had that conversation about like your own timeline. I guess for me, like if I just get rejected, I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna make sure I prove you wrong about this. But I'm not gonna sit there and like get like, oh damn it.
I just want to say, I hope the way you said it, it's so easy for you to say that, whereas for me, it's something that I
You're probably
struggle
like,
so
that makes
much
no
with.
sense, yeah.
No, I understand it, and I'm like, I like envy you because I wish I could do that, and I just hope not just you but others who are able to kind of have this mindset already or just understand the whole meaning behind not just sabr but like understanding that everything happens for a reason, and you know it's not in your hands, it's in Allah's hands. Leave it to His hands. It's something to truly value and hold on to, and I'm really glad that you mentioned it because again, it's something we talked about in the beginning. This isn't something that you snap your fingers and you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to be able to do this after listening to this podcast. This takes time. This takes, again, a lot of tuning in with yourself, understanding like this whole idea of what
sleep on
really
that.
is. Yeah, really. So for you to be able to say like, you know, you can't relate, or you know, you're not even in that part where you're, obviously everyone's can do better, right? Everyone's working on it. But I think it's truly something to value and hold on to. So that's really good.
Yeah.
I feel like you got a good closer in you.
I don't know about closer, but shoot, what was I even thinking about? Oh, I was thinking about like so every single like, I'm just reflecting, right? Every single milestone and big achievement that I've ever had in my life, there's always been. Now that I think about it, right? If you reflect back, it's like there's always been a little bit of luck involved, per se, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, looking back, it's not luck; it's
It's not
Allah's
luck.
will and
Yep.
Yeah.
something that Allah did to make it happen,
Mhm.
right? Like whether you get an easy interviewer for a job and they make a decision. Like from that to anything, like getting into the school you want to get to, having the friends that you have, being involved in certain activities that you have, being a part of this podcast, like
Yeah.
everything had a little bit of a luck to it. And now, if you're not really a believer, you look back, you're like, oh, I just got really lucky, or no, I did all this hard work, it was all me. But in reality, Allah gave
Exactly.
everything to you, right? And you can take it all away,
Exactly.
right? So I think being able to realize that like everything that you have isn't from you.
Mhm.
It's not like you're putting in work, you're doing this, but at the end of the day, if Allah didn't want you to have it, you wouldn't have it.
Mhm.
He's giving you the ability to put in that work to do it,
Exactly.
right? So having that sense of humility and sabr, honestly.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of like nodding my head a lot when you're saying this because this is it's something silly and small, but I use the whole phrase "I'm so lucky" or "You're so lucky" or something lucky so much, and then I had this conversation with someone, and they were telling me there's no such thing as luck, like a fellow Muslim, like it's not luck, and I had like this whole long conversation with them, and it really just like opened my eyes. So now every time I accidentally say the word, accidentally say it, or like I'm thinking about saying it, and the first thing I think of is, oh, they're so lucky they were able to. I literally sit back and I like, no, it's not luck. It's either, it's literally Allah's will. So small changes like that, honestly, it's all that's kind of like help progress to the whole aspect of, our progress. So
yeah, I guess this is an ayah, but only those who are patient shall receive their rewards in full. I feel like that is a good way
speaks
to close
volumes.
it. With that said, though, I appreciate you both for being on. I appreciate you guys for listening. Hopefully you guys can tune in again next time when we talk about...
We're still coming up with a topic.
Well, there you go. So if you guys have topics, things you want to talk about, leave it in the comments. Let us know. Like, comment, follow, all those good things. And thank you guys again for listening.
Salam.